I welcome you to the Top 10 channel. Subscribe to the channel, put a like, and we start the next top. Top 10 Worst Theme Park Accidents. Few experiences are more pure and strong than the concentrated combination of terror and ecstasy that is a theme park ride. The biggest attractions at theme parks, whether they're water slides, roller coasters, or drop towers, provide visceral, terrifying sensations while being protected by seatbelts, harnesses, rails, and tracks that are all expertly and continuously maintained to the greatest safety standards. Except that this is only true in some parks and not in others, and figuring out which is very impossible. On a case-by-case basis, local governments, state governments, or the Consumer Product Safety Commission may regulate the safety of a particular park. The CPSC has described it as a fragmented system. This has resulted in between 30,000 to 45,000 theme park accidents each year. With so many terrible occurrences to pick from, we've compiled a list of 10 of the craziest and worst theme park mishaps ever. Superman took her feet. Accidents that aren't lethal might chill you out in ways that a straightforward death can't. That certainly applies to the case of Caitlin Lassiter, a 13-year-old who survived an accident on the Superman Tower of Power ride at Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom. Her feet, however, did not survive. Caitlin rode the Tower of Power, a drop tower experience that mimics a 154-foot fall, on June 21, 2007. One of the ride's many cables snapped shortly after it began. The ride came to a halt, and the other passengers were struck by the cable, but only received minor injuries. Caitlin was unfortunate enough to have the cable loop around her ankles. Her left femur was shattered and held fast as she fell, cutting both of her feet. Doctors were able to reattach her right foot, but her left leg, which was far more severely damaged, had to be amputated below the knee. The ghost train catches fire. The indoor ghost train ride at Luna Park in Sydney, Australia caught fire on June 9, 1979. 7 persons were killed in the tragedy, 6 of whom were children. The fire burned the entire attraction to the ground because the park had never built a sprinkler system. We're still trying to figure out what started the mysterious fire in the first place. When the fire broke out, about 35 people were traveling the train down its eerie internal track. A fire broke out, either owing to an electrical accident or, as was later reported, an arson attack by a crime boss. The personnel noticed the smoke and began removing passengers from the ride, but they were unable to reach all of them before the fire became too large. Because the park was understaffed and the nearest fire hose couldn't reach the entire ride, 7 people died, as well as the train. Big Thunder Mountain hits the roof. Despite the fact that it resulted in a horrible death, this accident receives a fraction of the web press that the others do. Maybe that's because it happened at Disneyland, the happiest place on Earth, and one of its wealthiest and most powerful. The day that Disney's Big Thunder Mountain Railroad roller coaster broke down was September 5, 2003. The counterfeit locomotive's lead car lost its back wheels and rocketed up into the roof, during the indoor portion. Following automobiles sped past the now embedded lead car, smashing Marcelo Torres into it and killing him. Machinists did not comprehend or follow the park's maintenance processes, and operators were not provided the necessary guidelines, according to the California Division of Occupational Safety. Torres' family settled with Disney for an undisclosed sum the following year. When Mindbender derailed. The West Edmonton Mall in Alberta, Canada, was the world's largest mall in 1986. Its roller coaster, the Mindbender, was the world's tallest indoor roller coaster at the time. In any case, I'm not sure a roller coaster within a mall is a smart idea. Regardless, it became a significant attraction twice over, and its attendance levels reflected this for decades, averaging hundreds each hour. Only 4 passengers were unfortunate enough to be thrown from the ride, 3 of whom died. On June 14, 1986, a car disconnected from the coaster track, its restraints opened, and 4 people were catapulted into the mall's concrete floor due to a combination of bad design and poor maintenance. Rod Chaco, the 4th surviving passenger, has lobbied unsuccessfully for decades for a tribute to his unlucky fellow passengers to be installed in the mall. The Haunted Castle Fire. Another dark indoor ride, New Jersey's Haunted Castle at Six Flags Great Adventure, caught fire in an eerily similar scenario to the Luna Park ghost train disaster. It had neglected to install sprinkler systems yet again. It killed 8 people this time, compared to 7 at Luna Park. And, once again, unfounded arson claims accompanied the occurrence. On May 11, 1984, a fire broke out within the ride due to an unexplained source, trapping 29 passengers. The attraction, which was largely made of flammable materials, was quickly constructed. Some attendees mistook the fire for a planned horror scene and reacted too slowly. Similarly, the heavily burnt remains of the 8 youths who died in the flames were initially assumed to be part of the scene, despite their dismal nature. Trapped under Thunder River Rapids. The river rafting ride Thunder River Rapids in Queensland, Australia, was named one of only 2 dangerous water rides on this list on October 25, 2016. 4 of its passengers died that day as a result of being crushed in the conveyor system. The ride's water level dropped rapidly due to a faulty pump, stranding one of its rafts. When the other raft arrived, the 2 collided, flipping the second raft. 2 of the raft's 6 passengers, smaller, nimbler children, were able to escape, while the others perished. While upside down, they remained strapped to their seats and were forced into contact with the conveyor mechanism, which crushed them to death. The King's Crown Scalping. Elizabeth Gilrath was just 11 years old when she was involved in one of the most horrific riding accidents in history. Elizabeth was riding the spinning King's Crown attraction at a fair in Omaha, Nebraska, on May 5, 2016, when her hair became trapped in the wheel, completely pulling her scalp from her head. Elizabeth shouted for the trip to stop for more than 5 minutes, but it didn't. Not until Jolene Cisneros, a good Samaritan, took the effort to physically stop the ride with her bare hands. Elizabeth's scalp and hair were completely gone, and her eyes were severely damaged. She made it through hundreds of surgeries and even regained most of what she had lost. The Verrückt Beheading. Verrückt, the former world's tallest waterslide, is the other water ride to make the list. Caleb Schwab, a 10-year-old Kansas State Representative's son, died on the tall slide on August 7, 2016. Caleb slid down the slide in front of a raft with 2 adult women at the back. This seemingly innocuous grouping would be the cause of his death in the end. When the raft reached one of its tiny hills on the way down, the entire vehicle flew airborne due to the unequal weight distribution. Caleb was fully decapitated after colliding with a section of the, apparently protective metal netting. The roller coaster was shut down and then completely dismantled. The Big Dipper Accident. On July 24, 1930, the deadliest roller coaster disaster in American history occurred at Krug Park in Omaha, Nebraska. The park's only roller coaster, the Big Dipper, had a bolt come loose, sending 4 of its cars flying off the track and plummeting to the ground. 3 of the 4 cars landed face down after falling 35 feet. 4 individuals were killed, while 17 others were injured. This made it the country's deadliest crash. After the tragedy, the city of Omaha banned all roller coasters, thereby killing Krug Park, which closed within a decade. The other Big Dipper accident. The deadliest roller coaster accident in American history occurred on the Big Dipper, and the world's deadliest roller coaster disaster occurred on the Big Dipper. There are also 2 completely different Big Dippers, separated by 42 years and an ocean. On May 30, 1972, the world's largest coaster disaster occurred at a fair in Battersea Park in London, and the Big Dipper was there. Both the pulling rope and the vehicle's emergency brake failed as the coaster's cars were being dragged up the track towards the first peak. The cars rolled backwards, smashed through a barrier, and fell off the course. 5 persons, all of whom were youngsters, were killed, and another 13 were injured. The coaster was decommissioned, and without its main attraction, the fair succumbed to the same fate as Krug Park, shutting down within a few years. Subscribe to the channel and like it. There are still many interesting stories ahead.